It is your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. That's Megadeth with 502, Chris. And why Megadeth, you might ask? Well, we have a guest back on the Classic Metal Show that we kind of enjoy this guy from time to time. He's an esteemed author, and he's got a new book out there that he co-wrote with David Ellefson, My Life with Death, Discovering Meaning in a Life of Rock and Roll. Because that all fit on one cover, Joel.
I tell you, it trips off the tongue, doesn't it? It's difficult to say when you've had a few beers.
Right. Well, I want to welcome back to the Classic Metal Show, Joel McIver. How are you, Joel?
I'm all the better for speaking to you two crazy chaps. It's always an honor to be on the show, and I'm looking forward to teaching you guys a few things.
All right. Well, you know, Joel, we've had we've bumped heads before in agreements and disagreements in the world of metal and music and rock and roll and whatnot, and you present somewhat of a challenge. So I'm going to let Chris take over and hitch over the head with a sledgehammer. How's that?
It's like the good cop, bad cop bit, right? You play the civilized chap, and then Chris comes on, and all gloves are off, right?
That's exactly it, too.
Oh, God, I'm scared now.
Come on, I'm the nice guy here, Joel. You know that.
Yeah, you're the strange one. He's the normal one. You're the one with strange opinions about what constitutes heavy metal. You're almost as bad as bloody Bob Nalbandian.
No, first of all, I'm right. Nalbandian goes a little too far with his Jimi Hendrix's metal things. You know, I'm not quite that bad, but I certainly do question some of your guitar stuff. But that, my friend, is not what we're talking about. What we are talking about is My Life with Death, your David Ellefson book. You know, let's start with the obvious, dude. Why? Not that you need any reason for why, considering you've done, 20 books at this point, covering the wide range of metal and rock and rap and everything else. But why at this point Ellefson, man? I mean, what led you to wanting to do a book on Dave?
Well, it's not a book on Dave. It's his book. That's what I should stress. He's the writer. He's the autobiographer. I'm just the guy who co-wrote it with him, right? Okay. So that's what I did was I've known Ellefson for a while anyway. I'm the editor of Bass Guitar magazine over here. Obviously, we know each other through, bass manufacturers and whatever, that side of the industry. And a couple of years ago, it would have been in 2010, I met David at the first Big Four show in Poland. And I think I'd had a few beverages by the end of the night, and he was backstage, sort of in the backstage area, and I ran up going, hey, David, we meet at last. We've only exchanged email. And we had a conversation, and to cut a long story short, that turned into me saying, look, dude, have you ever thought about writing an autobiography? And he's a published author anyway. He did a book on the music business a few years ago. And so it went from there, and he said, yeah, I'd like to. We need to get the right time. Don't want to be, because Mustaine had his book out right at the time, so we wanted to wait a little bit to get it out, so it wouldn't be exactly kind of in its wake. And then we spent the best part of 2 years writing the thing. But anyway, your question was why? Why Ellefson? Well, I'm a bass player, he's a bass player, he's an awesome guy. I love Megadeth, thrash metal, what's not to like, really? And it's been a hell of an experience, I must say.
So when you say that you're the co-author, does that mean that? Yeah. I mean, does that? I guess as a non writer, so to speak, does that mean that he writes it and then you pump it up some, or do you do the interview process to pull the information out of him, or what? Yeah,
I wrote it really. I mean, as it happens, David did write quite a few sections and a couple of chapters and sent it over, but 90% of it was written by me. We sat down, I interviewed him about his life. I think we did about 30 hours of interviews, probably mostly Skype, face-to-face a bit, on the phone here and there as he was over in the UK. And then my job was to turn that into a book. So you may recall I did Glenn Hughes' book 3 years ago in a similar fashion.
Sure.
Yeah, on the cover credit reads David Ellefson with Joel McIver. It's his book, it's his autobiography, but he's not a writer, although he can write a bit, actually, like I said. So some of his stuff we used in the book, which is unusual, I mean, he's actually a decent writer as well as a musician. But guys like you, if you're a musician, you employ a co-writer to come on board and turn your life story into a book. So, yeah, we sat down, I turned it into a text, he approved it, we went back and forth. My agent, our agent rather, got us a really good deal in the US, and the book is out, and my God, it's amazing. It's been a hell of a ride. It's good fun, I have to say. You kind of sit down with these people, you get into their heads, I've just done Max Cavalera's book as well. That's coming out next. So it's a great experience. I recommend it. I know, Chris, from what you just said, you're not a writer. I know words are difficult for you and intellectual thinking. But, one day you can do it. I think Kip Winger is looking for a co-writer. I know you'd be the man for that.
Let me just tell you something, sir. Not only do I have a book written and a book deal for it, but I'm also writing the life story of one Billy Morris from Warrant. Thank you.
Well, someone had to do that, and I'm looking forward to that one. Did you consider doing a Cinderella book as well?
No, I can't get A stars like Cinderella. I gotta get replacement players for my writing.
Well, anyway, so you know the score.
Yeah. Well, Joel, let me ask you, since you brought it up, I read in literally 2 days the Glenn Hughes book. I could not stop reading that book. You know, as much as I praised you and as much as I like to bust your balls about a lot of stuff, I certainly loved the Metallica book, and I didn't think you could do a better book than that. But that Glenn Hughes book is just fucking astounding, man. I can't believe he opened up to you and gave you that much dirt on himself.
Well, that's the kind of guy Glenn is. Thank you very much for those kind words, man. Seriously, I really enjoyed writing it. It did turn out well. So this sort of highlights what you're saying, highlights the differences between the subject of these books. So I've worked with Glenn, I've worked with David, I've worked with Max Cavalera, and they're all three guys. All three guys are quite different when it comes to digging their life stories out of them. Now, Glenn is the kind of guy who will walk up to you, give you a big hug, even though you've never met him before. The floodgates will open. He's very happy talking about his life, you know, and the stuff he's been through, the highs and the lows. Some people aren't quite like that, you know. You have to kind of work hard to dig that stuff out. So I think one of the reasons why Glenn's book was a success was because it was like that. He held nothing back. He held back... There are a few stories that we couldn't put in because we would have got A, sued, and B, whacked. But other than that, it's all there. And, it's amazing. Has he been on the show? Has he been on your show before?
Oh yeah, I personally gigantic fan of Glenn, but not so much of his Deep Purple stuff as much as his solo, the funk stuff. I think Glenn is outstanding.
Yeah, he's a great guy, and he'll be a friend for life. It's one of the great things that is a side effect of writing these things. Is you tend to get quite close, to your subject, and he's a good guy, and I know his parents, I know his wife. We've had some good times over the years, Ben. Anyway, I'm glad you like that book because it shows that you've got excellent taste, which I hadn't expected.
Well, Joel, when you're involved with a project with a subject such as a Glenn Hughes or a David Ellefson, how many hours a day on average do you dedicate to that process of writing or getting the information down in order to write the book? What is it? How much time does that consume in an average day?
Well, I like to work on one project at a time. So I usually have 3 or 4 books at various stages of development, but I like to focus on one at a time. So I like to get up early, get my kids off to school, get to my desk by 8:30 or 9, and just get right into it. But there comes a point when you can only do so many hours of typing at a keyboard before your brain turns to mush. So I usually finish mid-afternoon and do something else after that as the day sort of ends. But the shorter answer, or the better answer, is that as deadline approaches, really, from your publisher, that's when you put in the most work. They give you a year to write these things. They might say, you've got 9 months, you've got 14 months, whatever, to deliver the text. And you have to apply some time management skills. But nonetheless, you may find yourself doing a couple of hours on it at the start of the process, and then, you really are going crazy towards the end. You're putting 12-hour days. I don't really like to do that, but sometimes that happens because life just gets in the way. But it's a difficult one to answer. With Glenn, it took several years to get the right deal. I think we were working on this book for like 5 years before it came out. The Cavalera book, which I've just finished, has only taken 2. In theory, you could get all your interviews done in 2 weeks, write the book in a month, and get it out a month later. I've never been in that situation because the publishers haven't lined up, the agents haven't lined up to make it that way. But it's a lot of work, but it's not hard work. I'm fully aware that I'm not digging ditches here or doing a real manly jobs like you guys have.
Well, let me jump in here real quick, Joel, and just ask you a straight up writing question, because I'm in the middle of I turned in a manuscript and I'm getting it back in pieces, all redlined to death. What do they call it, primary editing or whatever. How do you, and I'm literally looking for teaching at this point. How do you put yourself back into the mindset to write stuff, you know, that you've already kind of written and you think is right, and then they tell it, and then they send it back to you and say, well, you need to flesh this out more, or this doesn't explain this enough, or whatever?
Yeah, I mean, nobody enjoys that, but you just have to bow down and say, look, these are editors. They're bringing a fresh eye and some fresh perspective. They know what they're talking about, so you just have to say, yeah, fair enough. I mean, if there's a point that you particularly disagree with, I would push that and say, look, I appreciate what you're saying, Mr. Editor. You don't like this particular paragraph, but it's relevant to the story, so it needs to stay in. Perhaps it would work better in a different paragraph, a different page. You just have to kind of trust them, really, and because if you don't, then the process will break down. Yeah, it's a difficult one. No one likes being told that, you know, oh, this stuff is irrelevant, but, you know, it helps, buddy, if you don't send it in written with a Sharpie on big pieces of paper. You know, I always use a computer to write my book.
Well, in Chris's case, he usually uses just crayon.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I did that at the beginning as well. It's a slow learning curve.
Awesome, man. Well, dude, moving back to the Ellefson book, you know, we have not seen it yet. We, of course, do not get a copy until, you know, I think next month is when we're actually going to get a copy of it. So talk a little bit about, you know, some of the stuff that David talked about and you guys put together. I mean, what is featured in it other than the obvious, you know, this is how we got together and this is our life doing Megadeth?
Well, in brief, it goes through his sort of small-town farm boy background in Jackson, Minnesota, and when what it was like when he was growing up, and the contrast between that lifestyle when he was living a pretty, what's the word? Almost sort of like a pure, disciplined, innocent lifestyle. And then he moved to Hollywood in 1983, and it all went downhill really fast. So within something like a year of arriving in LA, he was addicted to several different substances, including heroin, and really in a bad position. But the band was doing well, and it really tries to evoke what it was like, that whole, the whole LA thrash scene as it was, what Mustaine was like, what his frame of mind was like post-Metallica, what it was like with the early members of the band, how they were ripped off and messed around by various promoters and managers and record companies until the band took off circa Peace Sells, and it all kind of went on from there. His addictions got the best of him, and he sobered up, I think, I haven't got the sober date in mind, but I think it's 1990. But then that's just the first quarter of the book, right? I mean, he's been sober since then, but that doesn't mean that there haven't been complete nightmares in his life. You all know the history of Megadeth.
Sure.
They've gone up and down. He was out of the band for 8 years. And interestingly, he talks in great detail about that 8-year hiatus and what it did for him. And then, as we know, he rejoined Megadeth 3 years ago and so on. So the bare bones of the story are those. But the bigger picture is that he's a Christian man. And what the big thing that he talks about is the issue of playing thrash metal while remaining true to your faith. And now, what you should know is I'm not a religious man at all. I have no supernatural beliefs of any kind. So my job, because I know, and David knows, how resistant most heavy metal people are to the idea of Christianity in metal, our job was to present the story in a way that isn't cheesy and it isn't preachy. You know, it's not like Striper. It's not like, you know, this is, you know, we are the vicars of heavy metal. It's not like that at all. David is a man who's trying to find his way, you know, and he's one of the ways he's been able to remain sober for 20 years is through his faith. And I had to find a way to tell that story in a way that isn't going to alienate people. And to his credit, David was totally aware that people will a lot of people will not be happy to accept that, you know, and to say, look, you know, Christianity in metal, it just doesn't add up. People don't like it. People get uneasy. Not everybody does, but a lot of metal fans do. So it was a real challenge, you know. We had to tell that story. And that's the bigger message of the book, really, that you can do it. You can headbang all night. You can have a really good time. You can go on tour. You can be a family man. You can be a sober man. You can still thoroughly enjoy being a touring musician. And all that, you know, crammed into a couple of 100 pages. It was quite a task, but I think we pulled it off. I'll make sure you get copies, by the way. They have these kind of promo copies that don't have the pictures in that you should have had actually by now. I can chase those down for you before the actual printed version comes out, the actual finished version comes out in October.
Awesome.
Well, Joel, you know, obviously you can't talk about Megadeth without talking about Dave Mustaine, and Dave Mustaine has a reputation as being kind of a difficult person to deal with, and kind of a dick. Does David go into any kind of detail like that, and the reputation that Mustaine has and how he deals with it, or does he know Dave from a whole different perspective? And well, he's a great guy.
Yeah, Mustaine is by his own admission, right? Not anybody else's. By his own admission, a difficult fellow with a lot of issues, and who has said a lot of crazy stuff over the years. David doesn't get into that. He talks about his friendship with Mustaine. He certainly talks in depth about how they fell out, over the years. He talks about the lawsuit that he launched against Mustaine a few years back. So he doesn't skirts those issues or avoid them. But that's not the focus of the book, really. So he doesn't really talk about Mustaine's personality because, Mustaine's done his own book and talked in depth about that. So really, he kind of rises above any kind of petty rivalries or enmities there may have been. Not with Mustaine particularly, but with everybody else. I mean, he's been in the industry for so long. He's come across his fair share of dickheads, but he doesn't really go into them in any great detail, which I think is probably the best way to do it. I remember when I was doing Glenn Hughes' book, there was a point during the writing when Glenn was, I think, sort of insulted or treated indifferently by Gary Moore on a plane. And I remember Glenn saying, "I'm so pissed off about this. I really want to lay into Gary in the book." And I said, "Look, think about it. Do you really want this in print 50 years down the line? Some petty grievance that you have. Think about it." And in the end, he decided, "Yeah, okay, we won't do that." And then a month later, Gary Moore died. And it was just as well that we didn't do that. And I think Ellefson is very much of that mindset. If you're going to write an autobiography and it's going to be out, and it'll always be there in some form or other, whether it's imprinted or just digitally. Do you want your great-grandchildren reading about how pissed off you were with someone and how you had a petty argument about this and that? So, but the quick answer is that he definitely talks about the fallings out and the arguments that he had with Mustaine and various other members of the band, but he doesn't do it in a kind of a pissed-off way. I mean, it's all years ago. All this stuff happened decades ago. So, yeah, it's all there, but not in any kind of sort of aggressive way.
Well, since, you've put out so many books so far with, various music artists, it seems like everybody and their brother has a book coming out these days. What are your thoughts on flooding the market with so many stories now, the stories of decadence and rock and roll? Do you read other people's books, or you're just so consumed with your own you don't really have time to pay attention to that?
So consumed with my own awesomeness. No, I definitely read other autobiographies and biographies. I really enjoy them. I really like Rex Brown's book, which was written by a friend of mine called Mark Eglinton. I really enjoyed the various Guns N' Roses ones. Duff McKagan's one was good. But yeah, the market is definitely oversaturated with rock and metal books, and I'll hold my hand up and admit to playing a large part in that. But so what's happened is that since Slash's book came out and since that Motley Crue book came out a few years ago, and the bar was kind of set high for stories of debauchery and drug-addled foolishness, which are great to read, but after a while they can get pretty boring. Since then, there's been a slight change in the tone of some of these books, and certainly the Ellefson and Cavalera books that I've done don't really go into too much detail about the debauchery. Rex's certainly didn't. I think people are starting to get a little bit sick of these stories, and they're looking for something different. And you, as an author, are required to go a little bit deeper and engage people, engage their interest on a different level with stuff that actually means something more than just, I fucked 40 groupies and injected heroin anally that night. It's kind of there's been a little bit of a sea change. So hopefully we will see more books that aren't just about the partying, fun as that stuff is to read about.
Sure. Well, let me ask you a little bit about the Max book, just because I am a gigantic Sepultura fan and Soulfly as well. With from what I know about Max, and I've interviewed him a couple of times and met him several times, it seems like any project that he does comes with a lot of back end with his wife Gloria being in the mix. How did you find it to be that way, or were you able to just kind of set it up and work only with Max, or did she have her hand very much in it, like almost like a minor league Sharon Osbourne type of a deal?
She did, but it wasn't. I got to stress, it wasn't ever a problem. Max doesn't have an email account, for example, so my emails would go to Gloria's assistant. We would set up interview schedules like that. But no, she's very much his own man. He's not like some of these rock stars whose wives control them. Without naming any names, although believe me, I could. Max is not one of those guys. He had a very clear vision for his book. He understood exactly what should be in it and what should not be in it from a legal point of view, and he committed to it really, really deeply. So no, I spoke to Gloria briefly on the phone a few times. Did a lot of emails about the logistics of the stuff. So she was my point of contact when it came to putting together the deal and so on. But no, the book was all Max. And God, that is some book, man. In fact, it's out in Portuguese now. The English language version is coming next year. And I think you're going to enjoy it. He goes in pretty hard to a few people from his past and talks in great depth about some of the terrible stuff he's been through. There's a certain personal issue which he has not talked about in public before, and he goes into detail about that for the first time in the book. He talks in detail about the split of Sepultura, talks about the truth about why that happened. But again, none of this is mean or mean-spirited or kind of evil or trying to cause a massive rift. He's just telling the truth about what happened. Go, man. I think you're going to enjoy that book.
Cool. Well, how hard was it to actually corner him to actually do the work? Because Lord knows of pretty much everybody that you've written books about, that is the most busy guy between Soulfly, Sepultura, Cav Conspiracy. Yeah. Now he's got another project he's working on with like the Dillinger Escape Plan guys. That guy is never not working. How hard was it to get to corner him to, dedicate, 20, 30, 40 hours to do the work to get it written?
It was easy. Once these people are on board with the project, they're fully committed to it and they will make time. So you got to remember that when Max is on the road, that's 20 hours of travel, right? Or 10 hours of travel, 8 hours of sitting around, 4 hours at the venue, right? Or whatever. Add it up, there's some sleep in there as well. But the point is they have a lot of time where they could sit down for an hour in their hotel room and take a phone call, right? Or take a Skype call or whatever. Sure. The bigger picture, the bigger question really is are these people fully committed? Will they answer an email? Will they answer a voicemail? And in Max's case, he was 100% on board. He wanted to do this book. The time is right. And so he and Gloria made all the time that I needed. It was the same with Ellefson. It was the same with Glenn Hughes. When these people want to do a book, then they will do it, and I wouldn't actually get involved with anyone who was kind of half-hearted or not interested. I've done that once or twice, actually, with musicians who I'm unable to name. But, as in life, whatever your business, right, you want to be involved with people who are motivated and who are keen, and whose enthusiasm matches yours. And I've been lucky in every case so far with the autobiographies I've co-written. They have been, It's a bit like if I went into, search engine optimization or opened up some kind of IT company. There's so many rubbish companies out there, aren't there?
Yeah, there definitely are, man.
Yeah, I know of one. It's called Aiken IT Services. Don't ever deal with them.
I throw that open for you so you had an opportunity to plug your own business.
Thanks. Thanks. I love getting plugged by being smashed.
It's like a backhanded compliment, isn't it?
Right, exactly. Well, Joel, what follows the Max book for you? Do you have something else that you're started on or not willing to say yet, or what?
Yeah, both actually. Yes, I'm finishing a Rage Against the Machine book. I've got to finish that off this month. And that's been a lot of fun. It's also a little bit different because I went really deeply into the various political causes that they espouse. So I pulled in all these published academics and authors to talk about, for example, the Zapatistas and the sweatshop movement and so on and so on. So I'm finishing that this month. After that, I've got 3 books to write. I'm just trying to think if I can reveal any of them. Probably not. One of them is a famous death metal band. It's their official book. You can probably work it out. It's the most famous one. And then a guitar manufacturer, a well-known guitar person, a guitar company. I'm doing their official book. I can't really say who it is just yet, but you'll work it out. But that's next. So I'm going to be fairly busy for this foreseeable future. And I'm the editor of Bass Guitar magazine over here, like I said. So I edit an issue every 4 weeks of that mag. which is a lot of fun. We've just got Billy Gould on the next issue, and then it's Billy Sheehan on the issue after that. So it's been, I don't get bored, put it like that.
Yeah, well, when do you get a vacation there, Joel? I mean, with so many things, in works and in the process and, on the table and in the future, how do you get to a point to where you go, you know what, I have to step away for a week or two? How do you do that without your work suffering?
Well, I'm not too bad at that. I know I've just said that I have a lot of work to do, but I don't work really, half as hard as your average middle manager or, your average SEO guru. I work reasonably hard. I have time for holidays. We had 3 weeks away in August. We went to France, where I could unwind and chill out. But this is not hard work, really. This is fun. Calling up these people who say, all right, you're going to speak to Dave Grohl today to do the foreword to the Max book. You're going to speak to Alice Cooper today. You're going to speak to Billy Sheehan for the cover of the Base Mag. It's not hard work. It's fun. Like I said, my brain gets a little bit scrambled after 10 hours of writing on a keyboard, but that's not difficult, really, is it? It's not like it's not like maximizing your ratings on Google.
All right, Joel. Well, of course, the new Dave Ellefson book is out, and it's called My Life with Death, Discovering Meaning in a Life of Rock and Roll. And believe it or not, that all fits on the cover. But Joel, where can people find out about you?
My website is www.joelmciver.co.uk. I'm also on Facebook. The Ellefson book has its own webpage, which I believe is mylifewithdeath.com. But again, Google will help you, especially if you pay Chris to help you with the Google search optimization. Yeah, better. Other than that, Megadeth are promoting David's book on their social media and on their website. It will be in regular stores, obviously. It will be in stores near you. It's being distributed by Simon & Schuster, a major publisher, so you won't be able to avoid it, really. I hope people enjoy it, and if they want to drop me an email, that would be wonderful.
Excellent. All right, Joel.
That was kind of civilized. We haven't beaten each other up verbally today.
No, because now we're kind of in worship mode. So we're sitting at your feet, just looking up at you adoringly, and
Good.
You've tamed us.
That's the way it should be.
You've tamed us, Joel. After all these years, you've just beaten us down to a point of subservience.
Right.
Well, I appreciate the honesty in your words there. But what I think it would be different if it was midnight your time and you guys were just back from some bar and it was 6 a.m. with me and I was sitting here coughing weakly into my cup of tea. But next time we'll reverse the roles and you can show me what balls you've got, so to speak.
I might have my history wrong here, Joel, but I believe Ben Franklin said that the pen is mightier than the sword, and you've proven that.
Wow, that's amazing. Doesn't Tom Araya also shout? They say the pen is mightier than the sword. Well, I say fuck the pen on the what's that Live Undead EP 1984, 1985.
Look at this guy, musicologist.
Mode now. I'm going to have to go and listen to that.
Nice. All right, Joel, we always appreciate having you on the Classic Metal Show, and you're always welcome back. And when you write the official biography of the Classic Metal Show, we'll have you back again.
That would be an honor. My going rate is $500,000. I'm assuming that's okay.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'll just stroke you a check right now.
It's bounce, but you'll get one.
That's the main thing, right? Well, look, guys, it's a pleasure to be on. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to speaking again soon.
All right, Joel. Well, we'll let you pick a closing song since you're such a musicologist, and why don't you pick a song and tell us a story about it? Why you picked the song?
Well, it has to be Peace Sells, doesn't it? I've just written David Ellefson's book. That opening bass riff, which was written by Mustaine, finessed by Ellefson. It was the MTV News opening theme, I believe, for several years. They used the smallest amount of it so that they wouldn't have to actually pay Megadeth for its use. How about that for a nugget of information? That's the song to play. I love it. I was at Donington in the UK, Monsters of Rock, in 1988 when they played it. Ellefson was out of his mind from Smack withdrawal. He still played it really, really well, and it was amazing for me to hear the story of what it was like to play that show when he was sick as a dog and went off to rehab immediately afterwards. So I think for all sorts of reasons, this is the song to play.
Excellent. All right, well, here it is. This is Megadeth with Peace Sells, but Who's Buying, exclusively here
on your Classic Metal Show.